Are you often on social media? Actually, it is likely that you spend more than 2 hours on a day on social networks. Indeed, since the arrival of smartphones, social networks are more and more present in our lives. Today, we can see that Facebook is one of the most powerful companies in the world with more than 1.49 billion active users in the world every day. But we can also mention Instagram, WhatsApp, or Snapchat. All these social media have taken a very important place in our lives. It has become our preferred way of communicating. But in recent years, we have seen that the average time spent per day on his smartphone, and especially on its social networks, is increasing. We are in the right to ask what are the effects of social networks on our lives. To answer that, we will deal with the various points from the article Effects of Social Media on Young People, published in November 2018. Firstly, scientists discovered a few years ago that addiction to social networks is real. Indeed, more and more people check their phones every 5 minutes. The first thing they do when they wake up is to watch their smartphone in order to check their social media or emails. A real addiction develops when there is too much time spent on social media. Some studies have shown that receiving like can secrete dopamine into the brain and can lead to addiction. This addiction can have a lot of consequences on our life. Indeed, the main consequences is on our sleep. Indeed, check your social news before going to sleep can waste a lot of time of sleeping. Secondly, we can also note that addiction to social networks, contrary to what we can think, isolates us. Indeed, thanks to the social media, one can be in contact with distant friends. But by spending too much time on social networks, some people isolate themselves and communicate less and less with people in front of them. There are also many children who end up being cut off from reality because of social media. Some take pictures every time they eat something, every time they go to a special place. It was the philosophical point. Now we need to talk about the influence of social networks on studies. One of the problems of social networks is the notifications. Throughout our day, we are deconcentrated by these notifications, by these messages or snap that we receive. And it's something that affects the concentration of students in class. Indeed, receiving a message in full course awakens our curiosity and we will want to read it and respond. This lack of concentration affects students' results because even when working at home, social media distract us and make us less efficient. For example, I'm sure that if I had not had my phone with me while I was preparing this presentation, I would have finished faster. There is something else to take into account. It is the time spent on social networks. Some students may spend 3 or 4 hours a day on social networks, which leaves them less time to review for exams or prepare for classes. Finally, I would like to say that social networks are not a bad thing. I mean that using these apps too much can have real consequences and sometimes serious on our lives. It is necessary to consume with moderation so as not to develop an addiction as with alcohol. To conclude, social networks have taken a lot of place in our lives to the point of being developed an addiction, to the point of moving away from reality by spending too much time on it. There are also notifications of this application that can distract us and in some cases affect the results of some students. So do not spend too much time on social media to not become addicted. There is another element that we have not yet spoken, but it is our personal data that become more and more accessible and less protected. Companies like Facebook sell the personal data of their users to advertisers. It is becoming more and more difficult for Facebook user like me, for example, to protect his personal data. Everything we put on our social networks about our lives can be recorded. Finally, we must pay attention to the use of this kind of application to preserve his private life and not become addicted. Thanks for your attention.